Question number 7, Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister responsible for EQC. On what date was he first advised that EQC would be increasing the estimate of liabilities left to pay as of June 2016 from $262 million to $1.9 billion, and what amount of this increase is attributed to second-time repairs and reopened claims?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I speak to EQC on a regular basis and am advised on the progress with reducing the liability. The reducing the number of claims is the same thing. So I was evident soon after the publication of that $262 million figure that land payments were not being made as speedily as hoped, nor were the resolution of the last remaining more difficult properties happening as quickly as we would like. This is very well documented and, in fact, previously mentioned in this House by the questioner. As for the cost of the second-time repairs, it's estimated that they will be in the vicinity of some $60 to $70 million. Overall, the liability is a reducing figure on the initial June 2011 estimate of some $11.5 billion. The member is unfortunately trying to confuse, I think, the practicalities of making payments to people with the requirements to report expectations of dates when those would be paid. It makes absolutely no difference to the total liability.
Supplementary question, Dr Megan Wood.
What is the overall volume of post-repair inquiries, and how many does EQC estimate will lead to remedial works?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I would stand corrected. My understanding is it's in the vicinity of 5% of those repairs that have been done. Some of those will lead to further work. Some won't.
Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
Does he have any confidence that EQC has the capacity to finalise claims associated with the liabilities for the coming financial year, given the delays last year, in addition to remediating the thousands of dodgy repairs? If so, why?
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, taking those many individual questions from the back to the front, firstly, when it comes to the suggestion that they're dodgy repairs, the important point to remember is that EQC is standing behind them, as is the EQR office. Mr Speaker, I think the thing to remember is that even on a new build, the callback rate is up to 85%. EQC has got a callback rate of around 5%, indicating quite a good performance. As for paying out what's people are entitled to, when it comes to increased land damage or vulnerability to liquefaction or increased vulnerability to flooding, it's important that time is taken to get that right so that people get what they're entitled to. But I make the statement again that the overall liability, first calculated in June 2011, has not changed.
Supplementary question, Dr Megan Wood.
Does he stand by his statements in the House on the 10th of May, dismissing the impact of the EQC Action Group settlement, and in particular his example that a damaged asbestos roof would need a full replacement? If so, why is EQC insisting on repairing rather than replacing asbestos roofs?
Well, again, there's 2 supplementary questions. I invite the Minister, Jerry Brownlee, to address one.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd like to address them both, because I think that the member is raising one interesting point and got herself completely in the wrong space on the other. So the first point is that the action that was brought by the Action Group effectively, with their joint statement, meant no change. They're currently pursuing the EQC for very, very expensive lawyer fees that are in excess of 10 times the amount spent by EQC in their own defence. There was an agreed statement. It agreed that the EQC was right all along. When it comes to EQC apparently wanting to repair an asbestos roof, tell me where that asbestos roof is and where EQC are trying to repair it, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen.
Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Dr Megan.
To assist the Minister to know what's happening at the EQC, I see...
That is not a point of order. That is not a point of order. The member wants to raise a point of order. She's been here long enough to know how to do it. Point of
Speaker.
order, Dr Megan Woods.
I seek leave to table an email to a claimant informing that their asbestos roof will be repaired rather than replaced.
Order. Leave is tabled. Is there any issue of privacy being invaded by? Sorry. Chairwood. Well, I can't. You put me in a difficult position. I was going to put the leave. Now you're saying that you'll need to check with the claimant as to whether. Order. You've sought leave to table an email. I'm trying to assist the member to put the leave. It's reasonable to know whether there's any privacy issues that would be breached by the tabling of it. If the member simply redacts, I guess, the name of the person, then on that basis I'll put the leave. The leave is sought to table that email, redacting the author of the email so the privacy is protected. Is there any objection to that email being tabled? There is none. It can be tabled.
Question.
Point of order, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, you may have misunderstood what I was saying. I think it would be useful to know the claim number at least so the claimants can be contacted so that this situation can be put right, because I don't believe that an asbestos roof is being repaired with an asbestos roof.
Order. All members of Parliament get on very well together. It'll be easy for the Minister to take that up with Dr Megan Woods at the conclusion of question time. Supplementary question, Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you. Why doesn't he front up and admit that he can't give straight answers? EQC is telling claimants they can have what he say, they can't have what he says they're entitled to, and 5 years on there's no end in sight to the mess at EQC.
The Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, that was one of the best questions ever delivered in this House, and it would win a 7th form debating prize any day of the week, but had absolutely no substance to it and was complete rubbish.
Order. Question number 8.